Hi everybody, it's Pat Gillis here, and thank you for all the kind words about our new friends. A few people actually asked some questions about how we sort of bring the horses along here or how we get them ready for being in the school. So I thought maybe I'd just talk a little bit about some of the principles that we go with. Our motto really is that to take your time is essentially, if I could give anybody any advice about anything to do with training horses, that would be to take your time. Like I remember reading one time somebody said, somebody really quite wise, and I can't remember who it was now. They said the key to training horses is to always have more time than the horse has. And any of you guys who have worked with horses, you know that it can be a lot of time constraints can be put on things, and the more often you can avoid those time constraints, the better off it's going to go. Like for us, we recognize that these horses, they have been ridden, but they haven't done much, and they've certainly never been in any kind of a program, as it were. So they would lean more towards the weekend warrior kind of horse. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because the folks who own these horses loved them to death. You can tell they're so friendly and kind and sweet, and they have no fear of humans at all. It's fantastic. But having said that, just as I get older, I notice, like, if I don't do a certain activity and then one day just feel really enthusiastic and do a whole bunch of something, I can really feel it the next day, and I'm probably a little hesitant to go all in the next time I do it. And I suspect that probably for some of these horses, that was probably the same thing. That especially Tommy, she strikes me a little bit like when we first got on her, she was quite reluctant to get back into this. And she probably just has a couple of memories in her time that maybe the next day she was a little muscle sore or something and wasn't too keen on it. So our policy with these guys is to take it really, really slow. So we did a lot of work in hand with them, just teaching them to pay attention to ground commands, so to speak, I guess you could say, like, so that, go forward, stop, move away from my hand, or my, if I use the touch them with the whip, they should move away from that. Those are the three questions that I always ask if I'm going to ride a horse. Does the horse go forward? Does the horse stop? And does the horse move away from my leg? Those are the three questions I always ask, and I ask the same questions on the ground. So we start with that, and then we just had two of the folks that help us out here, Mahmood and Meredith. They got on and we did some work with them from the saddle. And the first couple of times was a little sketchy, especially with Tommy. She was really quite reluctant to go forward, even a little bit rearing up because she was determined that she wasn't going to do this. It wasn't really a mean thing or anything, but it was a little bit hesitant to say, no, I've had enough. And the daughter, Zephyr, she did a little bit of that, but that was more out of, I think she's a little bit more of a worrier than her mother is. Like Tommy, I feel like she just goes, no, I don't think so. While Zephyr, a little bit more of a worrier, I think. So anyway, that all went away soon enough. We didn't push them hard, but we did tell them they had to go forward. And now we've got them, trotting around in the arena. And today, actually, we had some of our more advanced students get on, the two of them, whilst there were other horses in the ring. And that was a kind of a big breakthrough for me, because that means now that they can be ridden in the evenings with the other lessons and get used to what kind of the routine that goes on here in the barn at night. For us, again, it's all about taking our time, and it's always trying to make sure that the horse has a really good experience with everything they do here. The name of our blog is ismyhorsehappy.com, because the reason it's called that is because it really is a priority at my riding school. Again, not to go on a real rant or anything, but there was a time in history where, everybody was working in horrible conditions in the fields, bringing in crops, or they were going to war, and the horses were right there beside us. And during that time, everybody had a rough go. And while one would hope that people treated the horses well, it was kind of an every man for himself situation in some of those things, especially at times of war and things like that. Well, we're not in that situation anymore, right? We now have the great privilege to have horses just as companion animals or as entertainment. They're no longer a necessary sort of staple of our existence. It's just a wonderful thing to have them in your life. And somehow, to me, that changes us. That changes our responsibility a little bit. And I just think I want my school horses to be as happy as possible. I think we owe them that, because again, it's just entertainment now. It's just for fun. It's not, nobody's life is being lost or saved by whether or not the horses do a certain thing. So, for us, that's sort of always my moral dilemma. I remember years ago when I first started in this business, That's almost 40 years ago now, and that probably wasn't as popular an opinion as it might be now. In fact, I remember there was a lot of times in my life where I know that people sort of mocked that idea. You know, there was a lot of people that kind of said, hey, look, they're school horses. When I would tell them I'm keeping them forever, they'd say, never fall in love with the schoolies. And I was, you know, if you've got horses that work all their life for you and then become unable to do that anymore, to just discard them seems really wrong somehow to me. So still all my horses can retire here, and still the fact that they're happy means a lot to us here. And so going back to our new horses, that's why we're taking our time with them. That's why we're trying to show them that this can be a lot of fun. They don't have to work hard. I recommend, if you can, take your time when you're training, because everything will fall in your lap all of a sudden. That's how I've always experienced this. Like, you take your time, you build up slowly, you make little incremental steps in the horse's learning and the horse's understanding, and then all of a sudden one day there it is, it's all there for you, and that's the greatest feeling in the world. And it's the nicest feeling in the world when the horse is doing it as a willing partner, and that's our goal here. And I will see you next week. Remember to thank your horse. Thanks a lot.